People really like hats.
Good evening, everyone. It's October 17th, 2023, and I'm going to call this regular meeting of the City Council to order. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd like to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel?
Here.
Newman? Here. O'Doherty?
Here.
Pierce?
Here.
Richardson?
Here.
Shumway?
Here.
Somerville?
Here.
Cumby?
Here.
And Harrington.
Here.
That is 9 present, 0 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk. We'll move on to public comments on non-agenda items. If any member of the public wishes to speak to the council on any item that is not on our agenda this evening, now is your opportunity. If you're in the room, you can go ahead and come forward or raise your hand on Zoom. And we're going to begin with Megan Landry, who had signed up before, if Megan's around or online. Do not see her online, City Clerk, so we'll circle back. And I'll have you admit Mary. Maybe there she came. Oh no, hand went down. Matthew North, please, City Clerk.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Any other members of the public wish to speak during this public comment period? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. We will move on to the Vice Mayor for a motion to set the agenda.
I move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Cumby, second by Newman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. The agenda has been set. We will move on to proclamations, Council. And we're going to begin with a proclamation about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men experience domestic violence, and whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole, here in this community, throughout Wyoming, the United States, and the world, and whereas racism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, and discrimination based on physical ability, nationality, or other factors perpetuate domestic violence and make finding safety even more difficult for some victims. Whereas domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse. And whereas Laramie joins with others across Wyoming and the nation in support of victims of domestic violence, as well as local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide who are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and sending a clear message to abusers that domestic violence is not tolerated in Laramie. Whereas domestic violence impacts millions of people each year, but it can be prevented, preventing domestic violence requires the collective voice and power of individual families, institutions, and systems that are committed to promoting healthy relationships. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Harrington, acting as the mayor and president of the governing body of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and call upon the residents to recognize the impact domestic violence has in our community, to stand against domestic violence, to support victims of domestic violence, and offer dignity and compassion, and to participate in domestic violence awareness activities, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand on the 17th day of October 2023. And council members, we have Celeste Collingwood and Rhiannon, and maybe others here for this proclamation. So I would invite you up. If you'd like to say anything, you'd be welcome to. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Celeste Collingwood. I am with the Wyoming Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. And And on behalf of survivors in Albany County and across the state, thank you, Mayor Harrington and City Council members. Laramie is home to the administrative offices of the Wyoming Coalition, and we appreciate the acknowledgement of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have survivors across the state apply here, across the state and here in Laramie applies for our legal services, and we train advocates throughout the state to answer crisis lines in every county, including here in Albany County. So thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you, Celeste. And if anyone would like to join you for a picture, council's going to all try to fumble our way up there for a photo. Oh, they're all hooked. Council, we're going to run around outside. Follow me.
That works.
Yeah, they're all.
You're set. You guys step forward. Everybody's going to join me. Maybe some of us can go in the back, I guess.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
If you'd like. We can all pile in down here, too. Brandon wants in the back.
I will hide right here.
No, like you're not tall enough.
All right.
for us
Oh, no,
anyways.
you're fine. No worries.
Okay. You look all right, Ryan? Can you see all the heads?
Yep. See everyone. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Yep.
Thank you.
Let's crawl into our desks. For the next round. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to our next proclamation, which is National Planning Month. Whereas change is an ever-present force that shapes and impacts our vibrant community of Laramie, Wyoming, and whereas the principles of community planning and well-crafted plans serve as indispensable tools in effectively managing this change, thereby affording individuals enhanced options for both their professional endeavors and their daily lives, and whereas community planning fosters a platform that encourages meaningful participation by all residents, allowing them to actively engage in shaping the trajectory of their community's future, and whereas reaping the full benefits of planning necessitates a cadre of public officials and citizens who are not only well-versed in planning methodologies, but also ardently support and demand the highest standards of planning and its seamless execution. And whereas October stands as a time-honored month for Laramie to join the nation in celebrating National Community Planning Month. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorsed National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of Laramie, Wyoming. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners of Laramie, Wyoming, and extend our heartfelt thanks to the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Harrington, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Community Planning Month in the city of Laramie, in conjunction with the celebrations of National Community Planning Months, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Laramie to be affixed this 17th day of October 2023. And council, we're going to make a trip back down again. This 17th day. Counselor Shumway, I let you go too early. I got so excited.
Mayor and council, I don't need to talk anymore. No, Mayor, council, I'll keep it short. In October, we often celebrate Planning Month, and like this October, we're doing that again. I would just say that this community supports planning efforts, and I think that that is a thing to be celebrated. You all provide opportunities, whether it's through the City Council, Planning Commission, and all the other boards and commissions that we do have within the city, for the public to participate in the governance as well as the planning that happens in a lot of these different boards and commissions, which does shape the future. And there are things that we do, whether it's decisions you make or that are done by staff that we may not see come to fruition, but we know that are there to help the future and people that we might not know yet or that might not be part of our community. And so I think it's just always a great reminder. You'll see over the next, throughout this month, some posts on Facebook regarding Planning Month on the city's Facebook page and Instagram page that just includes some just kind of facts and things that are happening within the community that are planning related. Also, anyone that's interested can always reach out to the planning office regarding planning long range and current planning things that are happening within the city. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Taney. It was important to hear that, and so I'm glad. And I think it's an example of why you should work with smarter people, than yourself. Councilor Doherty had the idea that you come up here instead of all of us going down there. So I'm going to invite you and Mr. Gavatuller up for a photo.
I'm sure it'll be weird.
We're going to try, though. I mean,
Stand on your toes.
yeah, make it work. Yeah, and yeah, you guys are going to come outside. Yeah. This is. Council, make sure you can see past them.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thanks, Ryan.
Always.
Thank you, councilors. All right, we're going to move on to public hearings. And City Clerk, when you're ready, I'll have you read the first public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on October 17th, 2023, in the City Council Chambers, Laramie City Hall, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. The meeting shall be held with both an online Zoom and in-person option to take public comments on the following. Original ordinance number 2067, an amendment to Laramie Municipal Code 13.28.010 to allow for vault toilets in areas such as publicly accessible trailheads, trails, and parks, submitted by Pilot Hill, Inc. All applications, plans, and specifications relative to these matters are available for review at the City of Laramie Planning Office at 405 Grand Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present at City Council chambers or via Zoom.
Thank you, City Clerk. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this public hearing?
Maybe Jenna?
Sure. Yeah, I fell out of the Zoom call, City Clerk, so if you see a hand up, please admit them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll add Jenna. I think she had her hand up earlier, but
Thank you.
maybe.
And Jenna, you'll have to, oh, I see you're in the room now. If you would like to speak to this public hearing, have at it.
Solve the housing problem is if we deport all of the illegal aliens who are falsely claiming asylum and close our borders. Illegal
so.
aliens have become a massive problem in our country and are...
You can go ahead and just, take that off. Thank you, City Clerk. Anyone else wish to speak during this public hearing? Okay. We'll go ahead and close that public hearing, Council, and then move on to the next public hearing, City Clerk. Thank you.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on October 17th, 2023, in the City Council Chambers, Laramie City Hall, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. The meeting shall be held with both an online Zoom and in-person option to take public comments on the following. Original ordinance number 2068, TA-23-05-A, a text amendment is being proposed to add the use category of personal services as a permitted use in the limited manufacturing zoning district. The text amendment is being proposed by Wayne Turcado, trustee of the Turcado Family Trust. All applications, plans, and specifications relative to these matters are available for review at the City of Laramie Planning Office at 405 Grand Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present at City Council chambers or via Zoom.
Thank you, City Clerk. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this public hearing, please raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. And Council, we're not going to admit Jenna this time since that was not a public comment last time. Okay. Seeing no others, we will close this public hearing, and we're going to move then, Council, to our announcements. City Manager.
Mayor, thank you. Our announcement tonight is a staff recognition. Excuse me. We are recognizing some of our part-time staff this evening. In particular, 3 members of the aquatic staff working out in the recreation division of the Recreation Center. They were nominated by Wendy Clubb. She's our aquatic supervisor. This month, we'd like to celebrate Alex Lewis. Wendy says she's a hardworking team player and has really fantastic focus when she's on the job, a skill that I think we can all appreciate is highly desirable amongst our lifeguards. And then also Eli Berry and Merritt Malberg are being recognized this evening, both for having really positive attitudes, bringing a good attitude to work, and also for stepping up to help keep things going by picking up shifts when they had colleagues that were needing help with covering shifts in the pool. And again, those are 2 of our lifeguard staff at the Recreation Center. So much appreciation to Alex, Eli, and Merritt. And I do not believe we have any of those folks with us tonight, but they may be checking in by Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager, and thanks to those folks out at the rec center. That's great. It's been really nice to hear so much about, I think, in particular, the lifeguards, because we all know how difficult that has been. So it's been appreciated, City Manager. All right. We're going to move then to disclosures. Do any members of the council have any disclosures of items on the agenda? Okay. Vice Mayor, item 8.
I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The consent agenda has been approved. Council, we're going to move on to item 11 then, and I will recognize Vice Mayor Cumby for that motion. It's no problem.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-77, supporting partnership with the Albany County Historic Preservation Board to pursue a community preservation certified local government grant from the Wyoming State Office of Historic Preservation in an amount not to exceed $15,000 to support cultural and historical research at the Hart Ranch and to prepare a nomination for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Cumby, second by Gabe. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. So as you know, Council, in 2022, the city acquired the, at that time, Bath Ranch, as we called it. And with that acquisition came 4,600 acres, a 4,600 acre section, I should say, of a historical ranch known as the Hart Ranch. This property is out along the Big Laramie River about 10 miles southwest. And let me stop for a second and say I had some dental work yesterday, and I'm learning to talk again. So
You're just fine.
So if I'm lisping, I'm working hard not to. Bear with me.
No problem.
As you know, we purchased that property primarily for the water rights associated with it, but we certainly did discuss with the family and also with you as elected officials and policymakers the additional benefit that that property could bring to the community in the form of wildlife conservation, outdoor recreation, and also the opportunity to really preserve and understand the historical heritage of that property. So my office has been exploring partnerships as ways to look into the history of the Hart Ranch. As part of that effort, we reached out to the Albany County Historic Preservation Board for some guidance and support in the spring of this year. In response, they've been fantastic. They came out to the ranch with us in April and did a walkthrough. These are some pretty high-powered people in terms of historian skills, and I think we all agreed. We had the state archaeologist with us, actually, on that walking tour in the spring, and it was agreed on that we should conduct an initial assessment of the site. So the Albany County Historic Preservation Board has not only done some of their own archival research, but they facilitated a connection between my office and a group called HistoriCorps, which is a group that provides professional, technical, and construction assistance to owners of property that may have historical significance or historical qualities. So we were able to connect with HistoriCorps. They came out in August to the ranch, visited the property, and have provided to us some cost estimates and recommendations that we can use as we move into the next phases of understanding more about the Hart Ranch. The next phase then, here we are with the Historic Board. We are asking them to sponsor a certified local government application to support our efforts. This application would have two tasks associated with it if we're awarded. In the first task, we would be able to research, do field survey, site documentation, and evaluation out at the Overland Trail stage stop on the ranch and along the river. And then the second task that would be funded if this grant is awarded is preparation of a National Register nomination, if in fact it's determined that the property rises to that level of significance. These are precursor steps to what could become a third phase out into the future, where we could be collaborating with HistoriCorps and other entities to rehabilitate the historic buildings on the ranch. The estimated cost is $21,500, of which $12,900 would be funded from the grant. $7,400 is the estimated current city match. That number remains in flux, so you will note in the resolution you are giving us authorization of a match up to but not exceeding $15,000. I think it's unlikely the match will rise above $10,000, but we wanted that latitude so we could meet the deadline and actually submit this grant. So I hope you'll be amenable to that. And then also a $1,200 in-kind investment of staff time from the Wyoming State Archaeologists is part of the match as well. A little bit about the Albany County Historic Preservation Board. So in Wyoming, only bodies that are designated by the State Historic Preservation Office as CLGs, certified local governments, can apply for the grant that we're seeking. And so we have to work with and through the Albany County Historic Preservation Board to get the grant. If the grant is awarded, it will actually come to the Historic Board, and we will enter into kind of like a memorandum of understanding for executing those two tasks that I just talked to you about. Anyway, I hope that you had some time to read through the excerpt that Mary Hopkins found and so graciously provided to us that does give a little bit of history about the Hart Ranch and Charlie Hutton, who was apparently the principal out there. And I would draw your attention in particular to the picture in those resources of the old blacksmith shop. And for those of you who have been out to the Hart Ranch, much, you know that building looks awfully familiar because it's still sitting out there. In fact, when I looked at that picture, I was stunned, like it was just so obvious. Yes, that's the same building, and that picture is from the late 1800s, so kind of cool. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them as much as I can as a city manager and not a historian.
Council members, do you have any questions about this resolution? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this, please go ahead and raise your hand or come forward in the room. Seeing none, we'll close that public comment period. Back to the council for any comments before the vote. Vice Mayor, please.
I just want to say, I think this is a very exciting opportunity, and I appreciate the city taking an approach toward preservation of these valuable assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Shumway,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
There's 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved, Council. We'll move on to item 12. Councilor Richardson.
Great, thank you. I move that the council approves the at-will employment contract between the City of Laramie and Gregory Wynn for the position of municipal court judge and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, second by Vice Mayor Cumby. Potentially, I thought I saw Patty earlier, but council members, I would say this item, I guess, because I don't see her, is the final contract with our new municipal judge. So if there's any questions, the Vice Mayor and I have been working with the HR Director to finalize this contract. So if you have any questions, hopefully, the Vice Mayor and I can answer them. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the public on this item. If there's any members of the public who wish to speak to this contract, please go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. Okay, seeing none, back to the council for any comments. Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Newman,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes?
Cumby,
Yes.
and Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved, and welcome to the Municipal Court, Honorable Judge Wynn. Item 13, Councilor O'Doherty.
I move to approve the application for a new bar and grill liquor license number BG-13 for Regal Cinemas, Inc., doing business as Regal Cinemas Fox 6, located at 505 South 20th Street, Laramie, Wyoming, for the licensing term October 4th, 2023 through May 7th, 2024. Issuance contingent upon final inspection of dispensing areas, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by O'Doherty, second by Newman. City Clerk, go ahead and kick us off, and then we can move to, I assume, the applicants?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. Do you want, I'll come up here. Okay, Mayor and Council, good evening. This item was postponed from your last meeting on October 3rd for our new bar and grill license for Regal Cinemas, Inc. They're doing business as Regal Cinemas Fox 6. And this is our first bar and grill license that incorporates that entertainment aspect. So they have to have a 60-40 split between food and entertainment, or all entertainment, and their 40% alcohol sales. So this will allow them to use their ticket prices to meet that requirement of state statutes. This dispensing area will be located behind the concession stand. They'll have a small locked cooler, similar to a couple other establishments in town, and possibly some beer drafts, with extra storage in a locked kitchen area behind the concession stand. Yeah, that's about what we have. As you can see, I have The applicant's here. Bobby is the general manager, and Brian Poffett is their legal counsel. So if you have any questions for them or I.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk. Welcome to you both.
Good evening.
If you have anything you'd like to tell the council, please feel free, and then we'll
We
field
do. We
questions.
have a brief presentation.
Please.
I think we'll probably cover a number of the things that you're most interested in. I've done a number of these, and typically the questions we get have to do with training, policies and procedures, oversight, and of course, what do you intend to make available? So my name is Brian Prophet, counsel for Regal Cinemas. With me this evening, I have Mr. Bobby Markine. He is the general manager of the facility. Bobby, can I have you briefly introduce yourself and tell them how long you've been with the Fox 6 Theater?
Hello, my name is Bobby Markheim, and I've been there since 2007, so I'm coming up on my 16th year here in November.
And as you were told, we have made application for a bar and grill license, which beginning July 1st is something that is now available to us, given our ticket prices and the percentages that were necessary. It was not something that we could have applied for prior to that time. So, Bobby, can you tell them just a little bit about the menu that you have at the Fox 6 and what you make available to your guests?
Currently, we offer more than just the popcorn and the candy. We offer hamburgers, we offer chicken tenders, churros. We're offering funnel cake fries right now, if that's your kick. So we do offer several different items, just hot dogs as well. So.
Now, of course, we are here this evening mostly to talk about alcohol and our alcohol offerings. What is it that you intend, if awarded this license, to make available to your patrons?
We're mainly going to focus on the canned wines and spirits, and then there will be a possible draft system put in as well.
Now, you mentioned canned. Will they be served to your patrons in cans, or will those be opened and poured prior to dispensing?
My understanding is Regal does serviceware that's clear plastic cups, like in like a ball game scenario sort of situation where we would pop it and pour it into the can or to the cup for the guest.
Okay, and that serviceware is different than the 96-ounce soda containers that you might get at the theater. Is that right?
Correct. You could definitely tell the difference in an auditorium.
Can you tell me a bit, or the council, a bit about your staffing at the theater? How many employees do you have? How many over the age of 21 who would be involved in the sale and service of alcohol?
Currently, we have 7 employees, including myself, and there are only 3 of us that are legal to sell the alcohol, so it's going to be a very small group of people here at first that's going to be focused on training on that and getting that correct and all the policies and procedures correct.
Now, Bobby, you've been through the training, the TIPS training.
Correct.
If awarded this license, can you confirm that everyone will complete that training before you begin to serve alcohol to the public, or before those individuals begin to serve alcohol?
I can confirm that.
Okay. Now, next I want to ask some of your service policies and procedures. So if I were to come into a movie and then come up to the concessions area and order an alcoholic beverage, what is your policy for asking for identification from that individual?
I mean, you'd have to be looking over the age of 50 for us not to consider asking for just a license of some sort. And we basically have to ask everyone, essentially, because our POS system forces us to put in the birth date before we can even sell the alcohol. So our POS will be there to help us maintain, make sure no one underage is drinking.
So when you ring in that alcoholic beverage, there's a prompt or something similar that comes up requiring the birth date?
A birth date entry, yep.
Okay, thank you. Now, what if I were to come up, maybe I'm with my wife, and she's gone in and gotten a seat, and I try to order multiple drinks? Will you allow me to do that?
Regal does allow you to do that, but you have to have all the IDs present with you, so you'd have to have your wife's ID with you as well.
Thank you. And then after I have ordered the drink, my popcorn or whatever I might want for the movie, can you tell us about your oversight policies within the theaters and during the shows, during the movies?
Currently, we have about an hour walkthrough of each movie to make sure, but once alcohol is introduced, we've decided that that's going to be a 30-minute, every 30 minutes walkthrough. It's a pretty simple process. You walk in, you make sure that your eyes have adjusted to the darkness of the theater, and then we're going to utilize a U shape, so you'd go up one set of stairs and then come back down and go back up the next set of stairs and then head back out. And that'll allow us to monitor any alcohol usage in the theater.
And so your folks come in, they walk through, and they're looking down the aisle just to make sure that nothing's happening that shouldn't be happening. How are they trained to react if they see maybe somebody consuming an alcoholic beverage that they don't think may be 21, or they think there could be a concern? What are they taught to do?
They'll be trained to come to a manager in that situation, or essentially, since there's only 3 of us that can actually sell the alcohol, and with our very low attendance at the moment, it'll be very easy to monitor and, keep track of who's buying alcohol at the theater.
Okay. Can you tell me then, let's say they came to you and said, Bobby, I saw a couple in there, they're college age, but I don't remember that she was served. How would you handle, even in the middle of a movie, a situation like that?
If I can verify that she is indeed drinking from an alcoholic beverage, then I do have to go and pull them out of the theater and involve the police department.
Yeah, I assume you'd ask for their IDs just to make sure at that point before involving the police department.
Yes,
but if she were under 21?
Yes, they're under the assumption that she's under 21.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I wasn't as clear maybe as I should have been. My apologies. If awarded this license, when do you anticipate that Regal would be in a position to begin to implement purchasing the coolers, installing a small draft system? What is the timing or your desire for that timing if awarded this license tonight?
My understanding is that they want to make it very quick, and so within 2 weeks or so, they said that they could have us kind of up and running with distributors.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have of Mr. Markheim this evening. At this point, I'd make him available for any follow-up that you may have. I hope we covered most of what might concern you.
I imagine you did. Council, any questions for Mr. Profit or Mr. Markheim? Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak to this item, go ahead and raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or come forward in the room. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Back to the council for any comments. Councilor Doherty, please.
I appreciate the applicants and the work you've done to dot your T's, cross your I's. Yeah, you know what I mean.
We're with you.
Dot I's, cross T's. I haven't had any alcohol tonight. But I appreciate the theater, and I want to keep our theaters alive and well, and especially one that has a great mural on the side. So thanks for your work on this.
Thank you, Councilor. You nailed it. Anyone else? All right. City Clerk, you can call the roll on this item, please.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right. Councilor Richardson, item 14.
Great, thank you. I move to deny original ordinance number 2067, an amendment to Laramie Municipal Code 13-28-010 to allow for vault toilets in areas such as publicly accessible trailheads, trails, and parks on second reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Is there a second? All right. So failing for a second, Councilor Richardson, if you'd like, you can make another motion.
I would like to make another motion. I move to approve original ordinance number 2067, an amendment to Laramie Municipal Code 13.28.010 to allow for vault toilets in areas such as publicly accessible trailheads, trails, and parks on second reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Motion by Richardson, seconded by Gabriel. Mr. Taney.
Mayor, Council, good evening. As you so stated the motion, I provided you the approval motion, which is a reflection of your first reading. We've just included the denial motion as it was the recommendation of staff. And so I really don't have a whole lot to add based upon the conversation that we had during first reading, but I do know, okay, I thought I saw them back there. The applicants are here too, if you would like to ask them any questions, but the ordinance that is there as your approval motion is set per your first reading and is approval of the recommendation and request made by the applicant. So I can answer any questions if you would like.
Thank you, Director Taney. Council, any questions for our planning staff? Okay. I'll invite the applicants up. If you have anything to add to this conversation, you're welcome to. No pressure if not. Okay.
I have nothing to add unless you have questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for being here. Council members, any questions for Pilot Hill staff and board members? Councilor Doherty.
Question.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, we're going to go to the public. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak to this item, please come forward in the room or raise your hand if you are on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period and back to Councilor Doherty for her comment.
I just want to say it's the only solution, given that we want the toilet to be available year-round. And if we started piping water, that would require heating the space, I assume. And so I hope we all vote to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Anyone else? Okay, City Clerk, you can call the roll, please.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Pierce?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on second reading. We'll move on to item 15, Councilor Newman.
I move to approve original ordinance number 2068 as recommended by the Planning Commission on second reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Motion by Newman, second by Gabriel. Mr. Gavatuller, welcome.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of council. On second reading tonight, I don't have too much to add as to how we got to this place where we're trying to add personal services to the limited manufacturing zoning district as a conditional use. But I just want to reiterate the fact that the Planning Division is inclined to propose the addition as a conditional use, and the recommendation arises from the need to align the intensity of uses in this zoning district while recognizing the distinct impact and compatibility of personal service establishment in different contexts. So mainly it's this intensity that's not going to be matched with personal services with what's currently permitted there in the other use categories. Other than that, we do have the applicant here, and I'm glad to answer any questions as well.
Council members, any questions on second reading? Okay. Seeing none, I'll let the applicant speak if you'd like. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll go to the public on this. If there's any public comment, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward if you are in the room and wish to speak to this item. Seeing none, we're going to close public comment on this item back to the council for comments. Okay. City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Somerville?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
And Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved on second reading. Go to Councilor Gabriel for item 16.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to approve original ordinance number 2069 on first reading, amending the Casper Aquifer Protection Overlay Zoning District for properties within the city of Laramie, as shown in attachment figure 1 through 3, location of Casper Aquifer Protection Area, and attachments A through E of the ordinance, in accordance with findings of fact and conclusion of law.
Second.
Motion by Gabriel, second by O'Doherty. Director Taney, please.
Mayor, Council, the item before you is one of the first steps I would call in starting the implementation of the recently approved Casper Aquifer Protection Plan that was adopted about 6 months ago. This process is the amending of the zoning map. So this is creating and following up with the recommendations that are found within the plan to amend the boundary based upon the information that was found through additional research, through the new studies that were paid for by the council as well as the county, and additional site-specific investigations that were done through different development projects within the city. As you recall, Stantec were hired by the city and the county to complete the plan update, and through that plan update, one of the components of the plan update was to propose where the boundary should be. And one thing I think is important to note is the changes and modifications in the boundary. There's some increases in the boundary, and so we're including new properties, and in some areas we're excluding new properties. I think this shows very fundamentally that the science behind why these boundary changes were made is based upon the scientific information that's found in the plan. If you look at the Planning Commission staff report that was provided in your packet, I did not rehash the whole plan and why every single detail and why every single change was made. If you need that level of detail, I really recommend you hear the words from Stantec that are written in the plan for all the little details. However, what you will see is within the map that are reflected in the map, those areas where the line is shifted generally to the west and some places where the line is shifted to the east. Just to provide the council with just a little bit of context as to what that means. If you were to look in total, 74 properties or 10.7 acres of land are going to be included within the new boundary. So we're bringing in new properties into the Casper Aquifer Protection Overlay Zone. On the other side of things, though, we have 85 properties and 275 acres that are going to be removed from the new boundary. So you'll see it's actually a pretty significant decrease in the amount of area that we're protecting. The property totals and things like that are kind of due to the fact that within the city, we have smaller properties, and so we're just talking about lots more detailed really when we're looking at what places are being brought in and what places are being excluded. In your packet, what I would recommend that you do if you have not done so is to take a look at the maps that were provided that include an area, a series of maps kind of starting at the northern edge of the city and kind of working its way to the south, that shows where the current boundary is, which is a red line that's kind of with some small hatch, and then a green shaded area that is the currently proposed boundary. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly kind of go from north to south, just very briefly, kind of a generalization of kind of what we're seeing. As you see at the very northern end of the city, you're going to see a large portion of part of the city being excluded. It's a lot of single-family lots, with the boundary essentially following the right-of-way of 45th Street to the south. Partially, you'll see some single-family homes and duplexes being brought in kind of along the edge of 45th Street. That is new. As you get a little bit further south, we kind of run into the golf course and university-owned land. This is where our new trail is located. Newish, I call it new, but it's not that new anymore, actually. That's kind of the kickoff area to Pilot Hill. In that area, you'll see a large section of land that's kind of closer to the golf course, so further west being excluded, but essentially the boundary remaining the same aside from that. As you get further to the south near Willett Drive, you'll see areas that were part of the apartment complex that's located south of Willett, the student apartment complex. I think it's a line now. I always got to remember what name it is. I can never remember. A light. And a portion of a trail that is city-owned that is no longer within the boundary. As you go kind of further south towards Grand Avenue, you'll see some adjustments and some removal of a few properties in that area. Specifically, you'll see removal of a hotel and some commercial properties that are located along Grand Avenue, as well as some city properties such as the rec center and the Ice and Event Center and a church located kind of behind there. Then as you kind of move further down into the Turner Tract, you'll see a few other changes such as the Laramie County Community College, workforce services, and a few lots on Crystal Court being removed. But aside from that, the other properties staying in. And then finally, kind of as you get to the furthest southern reaches of this boundary line change, you'll see that the Casp Rock for Protection boundary line stays generally the same, except for you'll see some inclusion of single-family homes that are located kind of in the Grandview Heights subdivision. That is a quick overview, but generally speaking, this reflects the recommendation that was provided by Stantec through the protection plan that was developed, and staff is comfortable with this proposal and would be open to any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Director Taney. Council members, any questions? Okay. Yeah, please, Councilor Richardson.
Can you remind us and the public of what happens to those homeowners who now are in the protection zone that maybe weren't before?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, that's a good question. The properties, depending upon the property and whether it's being brought in or excluded, if it's being excluded, it no longer applies and no longer has to follow any of the requirements or recommendations of the Casp Rock for Protection area. Now, I'm going to expand a little bit on the question because I think it's important to point out that depending upon the type of property, there are differences in what applies within the protection area. Most notably, if they are going through a development process, such as a site plan or conditional use, they will be required to do a site-specific investigation. That largely falls to commercial properties within the city or apartment complexes or large multifamily sites. Single-family homes are one of the areas that are, and one of the uses that are essentially excluded from the requirements of the Casp Rock for Protection area. Mainly the fact that these are small properties, they are usually individually owned, they are hooked onto water and city sewer, which really essentially eliminates most of the issues that are found within the protection area. Now, it does recommend within the plan that a single-family homeowner still follow the general guidance of the plan, such as, not storing large amounts of chemicals in their garage or things like that, that most homeowners really don't do. And so there is some things there. Probably the largest change that would happen to a single-family homeowner would be if the property, if of a large series of properties were purchased up and re-subdivided or wanted to be redeveloped. That could and will most likely trigger a site-specific investigation, which is kind of the main teeth of the protection overlay zone that's established. So I will point out too, we did receive quite a few comments throughout the Planning Commission process and up until now, and a lot of mostly just inquiries into what was happening, a lot of inquiries into whether their property was being included or excluded. Overall, really, we did not receive any comments really against. It was almost all of them were inquiries, and so but definitely explained much what I did to you about single-family homeowner, two single-family homeowners, those questions. So,
thank you. Yeah. Any other questions, council members? Councilor Gabriel, please.
Derek, just to be clear, a lot of that new development on 45th Street, mostly to the west, is included?
Mayor, council, so 45th Street's generally the boundary is the boundary line. And so some of the newer development that's occurring, I'm just going to name a few streets, Mojave,
Right.
Indian Hills, Shoshone, Chippewa, all of those are outside of the protection area now.
Outside.
Yes.
Just for clarification, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Are there other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak this item, please go ahead and come forward. Raise your hand if you are on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, we'll close that public comment period. Back to the council for any comments before the vote. Seeing none, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Newman,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes?
Pierce,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. I'm going to go to Councilor Pierce for item 17.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 2023-78, authorizing an invocation at City Council regular business meetings and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Shumway. I'm going to go back to Councilor Pierce for an explanation of this.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, we had a member of the public come forward and ask if we would be interested in having prayer at our meeting, and then I think it was Councilor Shumway, help me out with my memory, asked, and Councilor Newman asked for a work session. And as our policy stands, if two council members want to have a work session on a topic, then it occurs. This is just a preliminary, I guess, resolution to address that, to gauge interest in prayer at our meeting. Councilor Somerville worked with our city attorney to bring this forward for us. So that's really it, unless somebody else wants to add
Thank you, Councilor Pierce.
anything else to that.
Council members, any discussion or questions before we go to the public? I sense that there will be a healthy amount of public comment on this. Anyone? Okay. All right, we're going to open the floor to the public. I do have a few folks who signed up ahead of time. Stick to the, just so members of the public know, please stick to the resolution, and you'll have 3 minutes. So I'm going to first go to Klaus Halbskut for, City Clerk, let him into the room. And Klaus, when you're, I see you're in, you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead whenever you'd like.
Thank you, Mayor Harrington, and thank you, city councilors. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can. Very much.
Thank you. I would like to comment on this resolution. I'm going to use some language that you all are familiar with. So I'm going to start with whereas. There's over 4,200 different religions in the world currently, outside of the major ones. So whose prayer and invocation are you going to pick? Whereas the First Amendment, specifically the Establishment Clause, which I shall read, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. That means you really can't pick a favorite. The following clause of the First Amendment, the Free Exercise Clause, says, makes more sense if I read it from the beginning. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The free exercise thereof being private individuals and private groups, not government entities. And continuing on, whereas our city council is nonpartisan, and whereas I believe it should remain non-denominational, I would surmise that this resolution should be defeated. I think you all have bigger things to worry about with affordable housing and a whole bunch of other things that I could go on with, but I will stop at that. And would recommend that you seriously consider defeating this resolution, as I think it will create more problems and create more division in our community instead of the intended goal, which I believe a few had, of bringing us together. I think it will have the opposite effect. So I will answer any questions if you have any, but apparently I don't need the whole 3 minutes. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you, Cuss. Appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join the City Council. Roger McDaniel, you are next. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Sorry to interrupt you, but would you turn the microphone on if it has, tell us a green light?
Oh.
I appreciate that.
All right.
And get right back after it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe in prayer, and I also believe in the Constitution, and I don't believe prayer should be divisive. And if you look at the significant number of federal court lawsuits over the last many years about prayer in public meetings, you know how divisive it is across the country. You all represent a very diverse community in Laramie. Among them are people whose lives include regular prayer, and a lot of people whose lives do not include prayer. This would not be a simple process to implement, to pass constitutional muster. Among those whose lives include prayer, they pray in a variety of ways, and it's unclear how you could accommodate them all without finding yourself and your attorneys mired down. Even among those who pray, or those who identify themselves as Christians, which would be the majority, we don't all pray alike. There are conservative Christians and progressive Christians, Catholics, Protestants, members of the LDS community, and then beyond that, there are others who you would have to accommodate. Unitarian Universalists, for example, members of the Baha'i faith, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Wiccans, and others. And I can imagine you'll get a few strange requests from folks who may call themselves like satanic cults who believe in a form of prayer. You will be opening up a Pandora's box needlessly. There really is no need for prayer to open a public meeting. You all pray on your own and say your prayers in the way that you say your prayers without creating an issue that will cause significant division in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? I see Rudy Hess is in the, please, Mr. Shank, come forward.
Christopher Stratton, Laramie Community Theater. Laramie 24/7, different name. On the aspect of prayers, etc., we are not a pulpit. We are a governance, and coming from media, etc., prayer does not have a place in governance. It's absolutely not something there. I would be very kind to state that if you did do like ASUW does, etc., and do the land grants end to it, that would be more productive than bringing religion into our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Mr. Hess, and if you'll give us your address, please, when you enter the room this time.
Hello, can you guys?
We can hear you.
If you can, my name is Rudy Hess. I live over on 1488 Park Boulevard. Am I good to go?
You are. Please.
All right, fantastic. While I may agree that there is a definite separation between church and state in the United States of America, I would also like to point out that our nation was primarily founded on Christian European values, and as such, whether it is stated or not in our Constitution, the United States is primarily a Christian nation. And anyone who has anything against prayers being said in government or public offices, I can understand that to a certain extent, but in reality, when we're just well-wishing everyone who is around us, and we're trying to bless everyone in whatever God, shape, way, or form that may be, I do not see a problem with that, because the way I see it, it is an extension of well-wishings from one person to another, or to a group, or to a community, et cetera, and I find absolutely no issues with that. It's not like they're out there saying, you know, I'm Christian and I condemn religion A, I condemn religion B, or, you know, nobody's out there saying, I'm Muslim, I condemn religion A, I condemn religion B, at least in the United States of America. The only ones who are condemning any religion are these vehement atheists, and then these Jews who are out there attacking everyone who doesn't worship Satan like they do.
Point of order. Please. Mr. Hess, for one, 1488 Park Boulevard does not exist in the city of Laramie, and also the anti-Semitism will not be welcomed in this council. All right, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Okay. City, I guess, Council, we're going to come back for any comments. We're closing public comment with that awful note. Please, Councilor Shumway and then Councilor Newman.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we contemplated introducing this to the council for a decision on this, I was able to go back and look at Thomas Jefferson when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, where 4 different times he mentioned God and the importance of God in the forming of the Constitution, which I believe was divinely inspired. Also, in as late as 2017 in federal courts, it was ruled that the national motto, which is "In God We Trust," is not in violation of any of the First Amendment rights that were mentioned earlier today. I also understand that it is the decision of the council to make that decision or whether or not to begin with prayer in this council, and so I will support this issue.
Thank you, Councilor Shumway. Councilor Newman, please.
So when we first started talking about this, I had no problem supporting it. I will not support this motion, and here's why. I think this is the problem with politics. We're getting the cart before the horse. We should have had a work session because if I'm reading this, so the council shall begin its regular business meetings with a prayer once the council has policies in place. I think we should have discussed those policies before even doing a resolution. Secondly, the section 2, city staff will be directed to prepare these policies necessary for such prayers, including if necessary, blah, blah, blah. Changing council rules and going forward. So we're going to have city staff use their time and not have a work session on what council wanted in the beginning, right? Which is another reason why I wanted a work session before a resolution. If you guys can't tell, I've been stewing over this since I got a text message saying that this was going to be a thing. And the funny part is, the person who brought this forward, the text message wasn't from them. So if I was one of the counselors supporting a work session, why wasn't I talked to as well when writing this resolution? I just see so many problems with politics these days, and this is like a real good example of it, to where we're trying to pass something, but we don't know what we're passing really other than a prayer, because city staff is going to have to do some stuff, then we have to adopt it. I promise you it's not going to get adopted the first time because, once again, there was no work session. So I've been frustrated because there should have been a work session before this, because I think some of the questions that the public brought up would have been addressed if we had time to actually discuss this as a group. So once again, I will not be supporting this, and I am super frustrated the way that this has happened.
Thank you, Councilor Newman. Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thanks, Mayor. And to tag along with that, I found it kind of surprising that this was not on the agenda for review, that council could discuss this prior to just all of a sudden have this item on the agenda. We had no indication until we got a message from the mayor that this was coming up. So I think that's the order of business. We should have this on the agenda for review before, and then we could talk to some of the issues that Councilor Newman's brought up. But aside from that, if we proceed, I think Mr. Hausbut brought up so many good points in his public comment, the number of different religions. I would certainly be in favor of a moment of silence after our Pledge of Allegiance, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, as the internet proposes. Something along that line I think would be in order, but we'll see what council wants to do in down the line. But that would be my preference, some kind of moment of silence.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. Councilor Richardson, and then Councilor Newman, I did see your hand for a second time. I'm just going to do first times.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Councilor Newman's frustration. I think I can see where you're coming from, because that was something that we did have on as a work session. I will not be voting in favor of this. I agree with Mr. McDaniel that there are numerous religions and numerous ways that people can pray, and I don't find that council is the space for that.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. Anyone else for their first time? Councilor O'Doherty, please.
There are dozens, I don't know, churches, houses of worship in Laramie that would welcome people with open arms to come and pray. I don't think this is the place. I would have liked a different order, but if we have a work session, it puts it on staff to present stuff to us. And it seems to me just discussing how we feel about this could save staff time. But faith is very personal, and I would never consider it my place to tell people how and when or whether to pray. And I would say my prayer is the service that I do for this community every week, and I don't want to take a moment of silence or have an invocation of whatever religion of the day, because I just feel like, a lot of religions are persecuted, as we've learned from some of our comments that came in today. There's, several religions in town that people have suffered persecution, and to choose one religion or another, I just think it's not in the place. And our forefathers had the insight to not put it in the Constitution. Declaration of Independence mentions, but not the Constitution. And that was so that we don't become a theocracy, because that's what they just left in Europe that caused so much problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Doherty. Councilor Somerville?
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilor O'Doherty touched on some of the points that I wanted to mention, but what this resolution really is a question on whether the city council is behind this issue enough to take up the staff's time to do it. In doing just cursory research on the issue, this is an incredibly complex issue. There are Supreme Court rulings and governing policies around this stuff. It is not easy, from how do you decide who gets to do it, to what type of process do you have, to how long, to how do you exclude, do you exclude? All of those questions are incredibly complex, and the staff time that would be required to bring a work session forward is immense. We have items on our work session list that have been, trailing for months and months because the staff is overwhelmed. I will also say, since we put it on our work session list, I have gotten a number of phone calls, both sides, but a number of phone calls. And so the question of the resolution is the city council behind this enough to ask the staff to put in the time to bring forward what it would take to actually implement this in a legal and good way going forward? And I think that's the only question on the resolution tonight. I do not support doing invocations ahead of council meetings for a lot of the reasons that have already been discussed. But it really is a question of where are we spending our time and our resources. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Somerville. Are there any other members for the first time? Okay. Councilor Newman for your second, if you'd like.
I'll keep it brief. So I just want to make sure that I understand right. For a work session to happen, we should have 2 counselors. We had 2 counselors. So that work session, according to our ordinance, should happen. Now, it brings up a good point. You wanted, this was brought up so we could have this discussion on whether or not it should even be on our work session. What is stopping me from writing a resolution for every one of these work sessions right now and bringing them to us and wasting even more time than we already are? I feel, and once again, this is what's wrong with politics. We're trying to spearhead stuff that shouldn't be spearheaded when we already have ordinances in place or statutes in place to do this. This is why I'm frustrated. Even if staff didn't prepare, a presentation for this, we could have had this discussion without, people coming in, and I feel like the comments that we had in the public would have never happened if we had just a work session and we all sat down and was like, you know what, we decided that we don't support this. And that's where it could have ended that way. But now I feel like part of me wants to go write resolutions for every one of these and put them on an agenda just to prove a point, because I feel like that's what was happening with this resolution. I feel like it was put on here to prove a point, and I think it proved the point very well. The problem is we could have went without all of this, and we could have had a simple work session that said, you know what, we don't support this. We don't have to spend a lot of time. And I'll tell you, I am very religious. It is my background. It's how I was raised. It's how I raised my kids. Do I think this is the right place for prayer? Absolutely not as well. However, it would have been nice to have that work session.
Thank you, Councilor Newman. Any other councilors for their second time? Councilor Doherty, please.
Does this preclude a work session?
Councilor, I don't know, but I think, I would say not necessarily, but if the will of the council is, resoundingly against an idea, I don't think it would be reasonable to expect staff to spend their time on it. I'm not sure it precludes it. City Manager, I guess I would ask if you have any insight there, because I'm a little out of my depth with that question.
Mayor, happy to. I think you nailed it. I think you can vote this up or down tonight. You could still have a work session subsequent to this. I don't think one precludes the other based on your council code of conduct.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Councilor Richardson.
I recognize I'm getting a little off track here, but I also wonder if, this is what's happening because 2 people bring it forward, do we need to rethink this and say rather than 2, we need to have 3 or 4? If we are saying 2 is what we need, then we should stick by that and move forward with work sessions. If that is what we have written out, then that's where I sit.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. City Manager, can I ask how there's no vote that happens at a work session. And so what I'm trying to determine is how do you, on the staff side of this conversation, interpret the decision of a council? Because having 2 people, it feels appropriate, request a work session. Having a majority of council, because that's what you would need, right? This is sort of using the back door to kill something that you didn't want on your work session list, right? And so you have to do that with a majority of council. So to defeat that, you would need a majority of council to request a work session, meaning the decision's made before the work session. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that talks us in circles, and it's sort of unfortunate that we're in this spot. But, I don't know if you have any, it's not probably fair to ask you to have a thought on that, beyond sort of like the process that if you have any ideas on how you as, sort of the, our chief staff, how you interpret the results of a work session.
Right. What I would say with any work session is, while you can't make a decision, you can direct staff to bring back an item for your consideration. So that work session, like many of our work sessions, you could have discussed this. You could then direct us to bring a resolution forward, much like what you're looking at tonight, for an actual vote. Or you could drop it and amongst yourselves decide, yeah, we don't want to give any direction, we're just letting this lie.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Yeah, Councilor Doherty.
Couldn't a counselor or two say we want to bring, after a discussion at a work session, a counselor or two could say, I want to bring a resolution, and then they bring the resolution and get it on the agenda, right? That's how.
And Councilor Doherty, that's a little bit of the stick that we're in now, right? Because two of us can walk on any item we want, right? And that is the thing that I faced as the mayor. I mean, I was confronted with either it's a walk-on item, everyone's surprised, the public doesn't know, or we put it on our agenda, and then the public at least has an idea that this is coming. So that was sort of the thing I was confronted with. It is well within our rules to walk something on, right? And it should be, right? We do need some ability to be responsive and quick with our items. So I guess, I don't know, I don't want to wrap us up prematurely, but my sense is that, sure, we could have a work session, but it ends at the same choice, I think, largely, right? This, Councilor Newman, I feel your frustration. I think it's well-founded. But I think it ends at this same conversation. The same vote happens either way. But also your point's the same, right? You want to write a resolution for everything on our work session list. You just need a second to get all of those discussed. And then we have, you're going to walk one on every day or walk 7 on next in 2 weeks.
What's stopping me from doing one right now?
Counselor, nothing other than you would need a second for all of them. And you could, you can motion until you're blue in the face. I guess it's just sort of the appreciation of keeping things in order, right? And that, I think, is where your frustration comes from, and that's why I understand. So, Council, I don't know. We can talk ourselves in circles on this. I don't love how this shook out, but City Clerk, I'm going to go to you for the roll, if everybody's okay with that. Okay, City Clerk, go ahead.
Gabriel?
No.
Newman?
Nope.
O'Doherty?
No.
Pierce?
No.
Richardson?
No.
Shumway?
Yes.
Somerville?
No.
Cumby?
No.
And Harrington?
No.
That is 1 yes and 8 no's.
Thank you, City Clerk. Failing to receive a majority, that item fails. We're going to move then to public comment, council members. Any member of the public who wishes to speak can go ahead and raise their hand on Zoom. If anti-Semitism comes up again, we will just remove you from the meeting. Go ahead and raise your hand or come forward if you're in the room. Okay. Seeing no public comment, we're going to move on to considerations of council work session topics for the future. All right. Seeing none. Councilor Pierce, item 20.
Wait.
City Manager, I apologize. I didn't see you.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I don't usually interject at this point
You're
in
okay.
time, so it is unusual. Mayor, I just wanted to draw council's attention to the updated work session list that the city clerk's office provided to you tonight, and she's highlighted an addition that I made today, this under staff requested work sessions, but I wanted to point out that the Traffic Commission voted last week to recommend consideration on lowering our speed limits for local streets across the city, and so on their behalf, I have placed this on the work session list. I wanted to point it out because it's something we don't always do, but they're bringing advice to the council, so I wanted to make sure that that was brought amply to your attention and not just sort of flying under the radar on their minutes, but also we'll need to contemplate the timing of bringing that forward. Do we want to do that before year end or in the first quarter? So just food for thought, and I can speak with the mayor and vice mayor about the timing of that at a future time.
Thank you. And I would say, City Manager, I don't see that on the list. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong place. So we might not have the most updated.
Doesn't
Is
look
it
like
is
that.
it written down in front of us?
The city clerk only printed off yours and my copy.
Oh, I
so-
apologize.
Okay.
You did not get that copy, but
So it's even better that we have that note from you. It's okay, Ryan, no problem. We'll just take that under advisement. Councilor Doherty, you have a thought there?
I see this related to the bike boulevards, which I want to add has been on the work session agenda for at least a year or so. So that's the other reason I think that we can try to tackle things as we have them on the list.
Thank you, Councilor. All right. Councilor Newman, please.
Should we go ahead and just take the prayer one off the list, since we voted on it?
I mean, that's my sense that is.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Councilor Pierce, item 20.
Thank you. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Pierce, second by Gabriel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, council members. We are adjourned.